Hi and welcome to the Homeopathy Health Show. I'm Atik Ahmed-Bhatti, a fourth generation homeopath with over 25 years of professional experience and practice in this field of healing. The Homeopathy Health Show is the online voice of homeopathy around the world, promoting and raising awareness of this truly unique system of healing, which is suitable for all ages, young and old. Every week I invite guests from the world of homeopathy to come and share their experiences, their work, offer insights, and essentially talk all things homeopathy. Why not visit www.liketreatslike.co.uk and click on the radio and podcast button to listen to the latest episodes. So let's begin today's show here on UK Health Radio, the world's #1 talk health radio. Hi and welcome to the Homeopathy Health Show here on the UK Health Radio Network, and I'm your host, Atik Ahmed-Bhatti. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Bethany Huss to today's episode. Bethany is a licensed homeopathic practitioner for over 3 years now and a registered nurse for 22 years, specializing in trauma and post-op. Bethany brings her experience and expertise in both homeopathic and modern medicine, and we will be talking a great deal about that in today's episode. She prioritizes educating clients within the context of their case while offering a high touch point of concierge care. Bethany specializes in autoimmune disorders, thyroid imbalance, hormonal concerns, and chronic pain and genetic diseases. And she lives in Charleston, in the United States, with her husband and 4 children. Bethany, I paused because I was just saying if I said Charleston, this is a show and this is going to happen. I do apologize, but did I say it right, Charleston?
Yes.
Well, there you go. So everybody knows on air that I said it right. Bethany, absolute delight. Welcome to the Homeopathy Health Show.
Thank you so much, Atik. This is so fun. Such an honor to be with you today and chat. And I love watching your show. I'm amazed by everyone who comes together and brings their little tidbits of wisdom. So I love that I can be a part of that today.
Oh, it's my absolute honor, and we're going to talk a lot today while I choke, and it's going to be fun, and we're going to have to talk about
Memories of chicken nuggets.
Lots of nuggets. We'll talk about nuggets, and then we'll see which flavor is the best. So, Bethany, we actually got in touch through social media, right? Brilliant.
Yes.
And you are on Instagram. Actually, do give out your handle to find you on Instagram.
So I am Sweetgrass Homeopathy, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram.
Wonderful. And I'm a big fan of your posts because I think they're really good, especially when they go into the story mode. And it's a pleasant time going through social media. I know there's a lot of things you can waste time on, but the homeopathic ones, all of them, are just so good, aren't they, around the world? So many good things taking place, eh?
Yeah. And I think the beauty of, I think a lot of times as homeopaths, we do just kind of want to study and do the work behind the scenes, right? But we also have a job to put ourselves out there and be present with our community and bring homeopathy to light. And so, yeah, I think that I love following homeopaths too online because we're all gifted in so many different ways. So
You're so right, and everyone is so important, and everyone is so special, and every homeopath is so unique. It's a wonderful collection of human beings serving humanity, helping people with health, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's one of the best jobs, and I don't call it a job. It's one of the best ways to help others, right?
Yep.
It's just wonderful.
Yeah. It's honestly, I feel like the work we get to do it's such a gift for me, just as much as for my clients. I learn so much. I feel I heal in different ways just from caring for my people. So yes, it's a job, but it's mostly a gifting that we get to take part in it as well. So
this is a audio podcast, as you all know, but there is video, and I just looked up at myself, and it looks like I got jaundice, but I haven't. I think it's something wrong with the lighting. Anyway, back to Bethany. Bethany, welcome to the show again. Now,
we're gonna have fun.
we are.
Jaundice or not.
Eh?
Our hairs may not be in place, but that's okay.
Mine definitely are not in place. I do apologize. It's just the way I am. But hey, I wanted to ask you about being a nurse for 22 years. So,
Yeah.
what was that turning point? What made you go into homeopathy? Because that's quite interesting itself.
Yes. So I have quite a story, and I'll just kind of go through snippets of my story and tell you my turning point was with my children, having my own kids. But I'll just kind of give a bit of a backstory as well. I did trauma nursing, and I did it fresh out of, I had a 2 year nursing degree, got right into the workforce. I actually jumped right into trauma ICU and trauma neuro ICU, traveled some as a nurse. And so, I think for me, I look back and I see doing trauma, it's emergency medicine. It's things that like people need right away. And these are areas where I think the medical system actually does a very good job in, right?
Hmm.
Surgeries that are necessary immediately. And
Yeah, it's
so
brilliant. You're right. It's brilliant.
yeah, and actually I think that those are like the top places. Emergency medicine and then surgical procedures, a
Mhm.
lot of them I think are necessary. And then there's other parts of medicine where it's like, are we really doing best? So I was practicing as a nurse, and as I got pregnant with my first child, I had a friend who was having a home birth. And as an ICU nurse, I was like, what? What do you even mean? Like, are you sure about this?
Hmm.
And so I think it was just part of the process of, I love to learn. Homeopaths are lifelong learners, right? And so it's the process of getting pregnant, starting to understand what goes on in labor and delivery and what all the protocols are. And so one thing led to another. I had all of my babies natural, born at home, tried to do it all natural, and then went down all these different natural paths for childcare and caring for my own kids and pediatric protocols, understanding the pediatric paradigm in the medical system. And so I think it may have taken me longer as a trauma nurse to see the gaps in medicine, but in having children, I started seeing some gaps. So my turning point actually was when my kids got pertussis.
Hmm.
And I was pregnant very, very fully. I was a whale at that point in the middle of summer. And I was pregnant with my fourth. I had 3 kids, and they all got whooping cough. And at that point, I kind of knew like what the options were. We actually still went into our pediatrician. And even from there, I just felt like that tension as a mom, but also as a nurse of, did I do the right thing? How could I have done things better? Is it my fault, right?
Hmm.
What are my options? And homeopathy is all about options. And so I went home that night. I felt very kind of embarrassed, honestly. I felt guilt and I felt very hopeless. And this was in 2012. And I looked up and somehow I knew enough about homeopathy, was dabbling as a mom, right? And somehow I found an old homeopathic doctor's textbook online from the turn of the century. I skimmed the whole thing that night. I knew what to do at the end. I ordered the main remedy that he was talking about, $25. And over the next 2 months, I just completely shifted my kids' pertussis. And I think that was my biggest turning point. I come from a very medical family. I have family who are doctors and microbiologists, so very
Wow.
medically driven, which I do appreciate having that mindset. But then again, it is when we get these things, what are our options? And so I think that was my biggest turning point, actually. And I started questioning absolutely everything.
Now tell me something, right? With this, because when we look at medicine, there's a certain there's a certain order of things and how we think and what we've learned about the human body, anatomy, physiology, biological processes, mechanisms, pathology, whatever. There's a
Mm,
way to think on and how to treat. And
yeah,
homeopathy is very different. So
so
how
different.
did you manage? Because I do speak to a great many doctors turned homeopaths, but I'd be interested to know how you made that shift mentally. How did you accept that homeopathy is so different to how we see, conventional medicine?
I think I accepted this a lot earlier on and faster than some people. I had my own health journey and a lot of illnesses, even by the time I was 20 years old. So I think that I already kind of came into the world with lots of questions. I was kind of that black sheep who was going to question everything. Um, I still feel that in medicine, like there are a lot of things that can offer information, right? And can inform us in a way, but there's so much more going on to the human psyche, to where are the gaps? I think it's like we know innately in our being there has to be more than just physical symptoms, the physical body and physical healing. Like, where are the gaps? Wouldn't it make sense that there are spiritual components of us and the mental and emotional? And like, when I have this symptom, why do I actually get depression?
Hmm.
Why do I get angry? And I think that I don't know if I just question everything and see certain modalities as helpful for certain times, but then I'm watching for the gaps. And so I think that I started, yeah, just kind of questioning everything and started realizing, especially with homeopathy and having children, whoa, this whole connection of the physical and then the mental, emotional, spiritual. I think that that is probably what brought me in the most and what like captured my heart and my mind. Um, do you feel like you hear a lot that homeopaths say homeopathy chose me? I didn't choose
Absolutely.
homeopathy.
Yeah. That's the same with me. I can absolutely unequivocally say that. My story as a fourth generation homeopath, but I didn't choose it initially. I
Yeah.
didn't. I went a different path.
Mm,
And it just so happened I was in the right place at that right time. And funnily enough, I picked up the first remedy I physically picked up was
mm,
China.
mm.
And that was it.
That's
I don't
wild.
know what happened to me inside. It was like, this is
Wow.
what I want to do. I want to be a homeopath. And it started.
Yeah. It's too remarkable. I haven't seen anything else offer the answers or make sense of things. And when I say offering the answers, I don't mean why did I get sick, right? Like we're in medicine, we are always looking for did you fit the diagnostic criteria? Did you fit all of the markers that then will help spit out the protocol or plan of care that we're offering you? But what if you haven't met all those markers? What if you haven't met all the diagnostic criteria? Then what are your options after that? And yeah, homeopathy just, I feel like it always has possibilities and capacities beyond other modalities of medicine. I don't just feel or believe, like I know that. I've watched it now, in my kids, in my clients. I feel I've even like gotten to the point, and I'm sure you feel this way, where I'll take on a case and there's a big part of me that's like, there's a part that's like, okay, I think I can do this, but there's a really big part of me that thinks, oh, I don't know that I can do this. I haven't actually done this before. And then like homeopathy just proves itself to me. It's not my ego. It's not what I did. Yes, I've been trained, but I still just feel like it's what homeopathy, it's just proving itself over and over.
Yeah, you've said it so beautifully. Last night, somebody called me up around 11 and they said, my rabbit is sick.
Do
And they
you do
said,
rabbits?
I do everything.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
I don't do rabbits, folks.
yeah. Well, it wasn't Bugs Bunny. It wasn't a Bugs Bunny moment, but
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good.
but so honestly, I wasn't expecting that call, right? And I
Mm,
said, okay, let's do. We did a WhatsApp video call, right, just to see. So the rabbit was not eating for 24 hours, not passing urine,
mm,
problem with opening bowels, stuck in one corner of the house, didn't move, didn't take food, didn't take water. I said, okay, let me make something up.
mm,
I made something up. Half an hour later, they called up. They said the rabbit started drinking water after one dose of
mhm,
a globule. Now
mhm,
you tell me, wow, isn't that? And I, even as a homeopath of so many years, just like yourself,
mhm.
I was still shocked. I thought that was quick, you
I
know.
know.
And
Yeah.
now the rabbit's eating, running around is absolutely fine.
Mm,
And
mhm.
that's the hook, line, and sinker, right? When you see homeopathy with your own eyes, because a lot of people say, "Oh, we don't know it works," and we try it,
Yeah.
do it properly, go to a registered homeopath, have a
Yeah.
proper consultation. Don't just try anything, but or well, actually, you can over the counter for acutes, right, or complex acutes,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
just try it, and when you see that, it will just change you as a person. That wow, this is so good.
It's a what do you have to lose? You know, there are, I think most of the people coming to me now don't actually have any more options. I met with someone this week who's signing on with me, and they, for their daughter, they have literally tried everything. And I had talked to them back in the summer, and I was like, y'all are doing a great job, at least just like checking all the boxes, even if you get a negative lab or negative results, you know, and you can say, okay, well, it's not that good. We've weeded that out. Great. So we're moving on. And I just love getting people where they're like, okay, we literally have done everything, and the specialists have no next steps or plan of care. I'm like, great, it's time to bring homeopathy in
Yeah.
because it's surgery, it's lifelong dependency on certain medications for some people.
Mm.
Um, and even, you know, the how cheap medications are, remedies are like $8 to $25 typically, you know, but acutes are what bring people in usually early
Yeah.
on. And just, yeah, they're just amazing. So,
I think, your 22 years specializing in trauma and post-op is so important because I'm sure when the patients walk in, actually, I'm going to ask you this. When the patients do walk in, is there one half of you that's looking at it from a conventional medical perspective? Because that helps. We need diagnostic tests, right? They're very, very useful for homeopaths now. And then there's the other side of you looking at homeopathy, and somehow there's this fusion that takes place, doesn't it, of the knowledge you already have
yeah.
about disease and treatment of disease. And then you've got the homeopathic perspective, which says, hang on, step back, and now observe and look at everything.
I feel like I've just maybe in the past 6 to 9 months really hit that fusion that you brought up.
Mm,
And I think that, okay, I'm still just in my third year as a homeopath, right? There's got to be some humility there. And like, I'm still learning a ton. I'm still taking in a lot of information. I'm still practicing the way Denise and Al taught me to at school, right? And yet, I feel like every single time, I can't help myself. Every single time someone comes through the door and they're brand new, my medical hat is the first thing to go on. When they come through an intake form, my first thought is skimming through and understanding the medical history, how everything fits together, where they're at with medications and polypharmacy, and like, do we need to shore up on that first? Do we
mm.
need consults? I am just like triaging in my brain. So I do a lot of that initially. And I feel like once I can do that, then I can like let that medical guard down a little bit more and really sink into the homeopathic knowledge and get excited about, okay, you've done all of this medically, and this is where homeopathy can shine. in the margins, in the questions, in the, idiopathic. We don't know where this came from. No one can tell us a root cause. So this is a big soapbox for me. I don't know if it is for you. I'm not about root cause, but I am, because I think there can be so many things, right, that affect and that like create the development of pathology and disease processes. But I am about there is a core dysfunction that has occurred over years, and your body literally will tell us the way. And your body and your unique expression of imbalance literally will light my path. Even when we feel confused, it's okay. Even if we give a remedy that may not be the perfect match, well, your body's response will light our way to the next remedy, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's a good way of thinking. I like it. I like it. Tell us more actually about this and how that slots into. Well, hey, you've got a choice here. Let's do multiple choice.
Okay.
Auto,
We can talk about so many things.
yeah, autoimmune, thyroid imbalance, hormonal. Pick one.
Oh man. Okay.
It's up to you. Which one
So,
you want to share?
okay. So in a way, they're kind of all of the above. Like they're all in a way part of the same little monster that's been created in women. So I had this hormonal helpline that I started out in October. Women loved it. I used a lot of, are your hormones wreaking havoc in your life, in your world? And so, of course, I was, using the word hormones all the time. But is it all about your hormones? Is it all about our thyroid targeting one organ? No, it's not. But it's the way to speak to people's suffering. And so I'll tell you what I see a lot and what I've kind of now positioned myself in to specialize a little bit more so I can stay focused in one main thing. And that really is women who are coming in with so many random symptoms that seem random, right? I try to use that word cautiously because nothing is random in homeopathy. And so many different symptoms, and yet they may not fit the mold. Like I was talking about earlier, they may not fit the mold perfectly for a diagnosis. And so what do they do when literally their doctors are, we've heard this so many times, but their doctors are telling them like, do you think maybe you have anxiety or depression, or this is all in your head? Like I heard that again this week from a new person. And it's just sad because it's like, there's so much, because we cannot prove or find the causation of what's going on because of that, then we start to distrust because we don't truly understand what's going on. And so my biggest work is with women coming in with autoimmune issues. So I have women with Graves' disease, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, lupus, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, all of these things. And what else? I wrote myself a little list here. A lot of suppression, right? A lot of suppression, medical suppression over the years. But also I have some younger people in their 20s where they actually have not had nearly the medical suppression or medications that my 40-year-old women have in their history, but they have there's a lot of mental emotional suppression, and they're starting in on these symptoms that then become full-blown for my women in their 40s. And it's like, after you've taken a number of cases, you can see the trajectory. So I guess to answer your question, the biggest thing that I do is being able to take all the so-called random symptoms that no one can make sense of, but are plaguing you daily. And the first thing we can do is just trust them and trust the body. And I tell my women all the time, healing is working backwards, and healing is an unraveling process. And just how it's taken all these years to create, the development of an illness. We kind of work backwards, and it's just so amazing, like working with women and taking care of what was at the top of the surface when they first came to me with their symptoms, and then what starts coming up after we give them the right remedies. So yes, I care a lot for women's hormones, autoimmune issues, a lot of birth control pills. I have someone who has been on birth control pills nonstop for over 20 years, and she just got off of them a few months ago. And that is someone who when she first started with me, it was a lot of symptoms and a lot of pain around periods, a lot of irregularity, a lot of emotional issues going on, and caring for her family members who were ill. And this is where working together collaboratively, like, you never know where you're going to end up. I never would have looked at her case early on and thought, we're going to get off birth control pills. I never even made that a goal. Maybe that's because I'm still a newer homeopath, but over time, she got so well that she literally was at a point where she wanted to get off the pill. And I think I was actually a little more nervous than she was. But in working together, like, she has done so well. We are at a point of bringing in like organ support remedies.
Brilliant.
We are not just doing constitutional stuff, and I still try to practice very conservatively, but bringing in organ support and gemmotherapy, and to stimulate ovulation, right? Because being on the pill for so long, you don't get the chance to know how to ovulate and to stay regular. So we're doing some of that. I can jump into other stories. You want me to jump into other stories?
I do, yeah, absolutely. But just before we do, as you were saying, everything that you so beautifully sort of shared, it's interesting, isn't it, when we go back to childhood, and as parents, when we look at parenting is such an important skill to have, because what you go through in childhood will eventually map out your path as to what type of person you become, and also, more importantly than that, what type of illnesses you potentially could have, right? Because of what you've gone through in childhood. That could be to do with parenting, good or bad. It could be to do with childhood trauma and diseases. It could be to do with emotional situations you found yourself in, and a whole shebang of other stuff, right? It's so interesting that if we talk about it purely from a homeopathic perspective, we know patients come with so much trauma, and sometimes when it's not a trauma which is recent, it's, oh, I remember when I was 10 years old, or I remember, when I was 7, or I was told when I was 8, this happened to me. And it's interesting, isn't it, how that process it develops, and how your body manifests after years, 20, 30 years later, you actually think, oh.
Yeah. I think that most of the mental and emotional stuck states are from the earliest years. And I would think psychotherapists or counselors, I would think they would probably agree with that, right? Like, we kind of play out. I also think that so much of that is deeply subconscious. And I think a lot of it is, sometimes there was purposeful, overt abuse or neglect, right? But I also think that so much of it is subconsciously, as children, taking on roles like carcinosin, right? Taking on roles where we are over responsible at too young an age. Like, did anyone ask us to do that? No, maybe not necessarily, but for whatever reason, for whatever point you were at in the, what is it called? Like, who came first, right? Oldest child, second born.
Yeah.
I think just the family unit and where you fall into place and what role you felt you needed to adapt in and take on that no one even maybe asked you to, but for whatever needs you felt the need to fill that weren't being filled, you took that on and it just played out
Yeah.
into even your 60s, you know? So, I mean, can we ever completely remove ourselves from those identity formations? I don't really believe that. I think it's always a work in progress.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
We can't, because life is not that easy.
right.
As in, it's not a roadmap that this is what has to be done at this time. Everybody has their own path. We find ourselves in so many different emotional situations. But the only reason I asked, it's just interesting, isn't it? Just as a point of conversation, how such a big part on how we develop. Because a lot of people don't go for counseling. A lot of people will not talk to a specialist. They'll just say, "Why am I sick? Why am I sick?" And it just needs somebody to sit down, a homeopath, and say, "Hey, well, let's go through your timeline. Let's talk about you." And that's where the memories come back, don't they?
Yep. Yep. I think that the most important thing a homeopath can do is give people the time of day to be heard. Because at the end of the day, when you leave my practice or when I've worked myself out of a job, you're left with yourself, right? You may not always have a remedy on hand. You may not need a remedy, but ultimately, I want my clients to come home to themselves. And I feel like that's one thing that I do a lot of in my practice is try to mirror to them the deepest needs that maybe we see that maybe we're not like directly telling them, but in a way try to reflect to them areas where they can deeply start being aware of tendencies, start to validate tendencies and not see them as judgmental. It's really hard to do, right? But it is possible. And then to just deeply trust where they've come so that they can make peace with themselves, so that they can say, like, I am on the same team
Hmm.
as my body. I don't know if you saw my stories this week, but I did a lot of just talking about our words and, you know, the simple language that we're pulling without people knowing it when we're taking a case. And the simple language is so powerful, and we kind of use it as homeopaths as a confirmatory towards the solid physical symptoms.
Hmm.
And most of the people, the words I hear the most are attack, battle, war. My body's killing it. My body is killing me. And heavy burdens, heavy weight, heaviness, hopeless. And so, yeah, I think that just if I could do anything, even if I don't find the right remedy, if I can do anything, if I can help people just come home to themselves, trust themselves more, be okay with that little 6-year-old part of them that is still stuck sometimes or gets stuck sometimes, to be the homeopathic remedy for themselves in a way.
Hmm.
You know, that's sometimes what it is.
Yeah. Also, just the fact that, as we very well know, just talking can make such a difference to get that weight off their chest. And I've seen that transformations thousands and thousands of times. People are 50% better just by getting it out there, just having someone to talk to, right? And you feel so light. Isn't that just an absolutely amazing experience? Because it takes it takes a lot of guts, right, for someone to sit down and share their personal story with
Yeah.
someone they don't even know about, right? First time, first meeting. And yes, realistically, sometimes it takes 2 consults or 3 even before,
Yeah.
a case can fully open up.
Right.
But it takes a lot. But once they've let it go, you see how they are, right? And that connection forms as well between the homeopath and the patient. And it's a beautiful journey indeed.
Yeah. And there's just freedom in being able to let go. I think a lot of people will leave the consultation room and say, like, I feel like that was the best counseling. You know, I'm like, I'm not a counselor, but they feel like it. And
Yeah.
sometimes people don't actually realize how much we want to truly know about them.
Yeah.
It's not just about finding your right medicine. Like, I want to know you as a human. I also want to know what's coming up, what might be coming up for us both working together. So it is a journey. It's really a connection and it's a journey. It is not just you're in my office and I'm treating you. It's so
I
far removed from that.
I always say that, look, every human being has a story to tell. We just they just need somebody to listen.
Yeah.
Everyone is
Yeah.
suffering and I don't mean it in a very cynical way. I just mean that people do suffer. Everybody has issues, trials, tribulations, traumas, worries, anxieties, call it what you may. It's part of the human experience, right? It is what it is, literally. Um, but it's nice to have someone to go to and say, "Hey, can you sort this out for me? Because look, 20 years ago this happened, and I can't seem to shake it. It's always in the back of my mind." And that's what another beauty, another layer of homeopathy, right? That it can actually do that.
I mean, it's just wild. It's really wild. Yeah, and I think that even for me this week, we're always studying. I was up to like two in the morning last
Oh
night.
my.
I was rereading, approving. I was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be doing this, but it's just like homeopathy just keeps eating at you and
It does.
so addicting. And
It
so
does.
even this week, like with someone in particular, but then it's never one person, right? Like you always have different clients' cases in your minds that you're thinking through next steps. And even this week, I was between things like sepia and calicarb and then like lachesis and the crossovers between, okay, they're telling me they're irritable, they're telling me they're on edge, they're telling me they're this or that, but then there started to become like more of a violent aspect that was coming up. And I was like, oh no, we've got to go deeper than that, right? And I think that's the beauty of learning in homeopathy, continued learning as a practitioner, but also learning your people. And the more you care about and love people, and knowing the fullness of them and accepting, even the kind of uncomfortable parts of ourselves and what they mean behind everything, the more we then, yeah, make those beautiful connections of all the materia medica that we've read for years. It's like, this is
Woohoo!
this is where we're going. I've seen this.
I love those moments. Hey, it's interesting. I come up with the best remedies, or I repertoire a lot,
Yeah.
up here. And
Yes. Yes.
I could be having dinner and the remedy just hits me, and I'm thinking, oh, hang on, let me let me write that down.
I know. Yeah, we don't keep work at work as homeopaths.
We can't, can we? We can't.
I've got
It's
my
chasing us,
software on
isn't it?
my phone. Yeah, it literally is. Yep.
Yeah. So, hey, want to talk to you about hormonal concerns because it is becoming quite an issue around the world, and a lot of it has to do with, the toxic load that people carry because of taking medications or whatever. So, but also emotions play such a strong part in this, especially with, regulation of the menstrual cycle. And even infertility issues. Sometimes it's not drug induced or there's no pathology, presenting pathology. It's just heightened anxiety, right? High tension and constriction. And if you're constricted, well, you can know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
There we go. I actually forgot to finish that
Question?
conversation off.
What's the question?
Oh, welcome to the show. How are you doing? This is the Homeopathy Health Show. For a moment, I forgot where I was. But hey, I'm back. I'm back. Just like Voldemort said to Harry Potter. I'm back. You're in trouble now. Okay. I don't even know what we were talking about. But
No, you're good. Just how hormonal imbalances.
yeah, it's becoming an issue, right,
Like,
Bethany? It's becoming a big issue around the world. So, what's
yeah.
your experience really, and how would you say what should be done? What can be done?
Yeah. Well, as we know as homeopaths, the first thing that we do is taking the initial case, taking the fullness of our initial case, and being able to truly see where someone's been hormonally throughout their entire life cycle and not just currently, and understanding the very beginning of menarche, what went on. I even like to understand a little bit of their moms, right? Their moms, and even sometimes the aunt's story. And seeing what went wrong, very individualized care in homeopathy. That's what we're giving. That's what we're trying to procure when we're taking a case and pull out from people, is the individualized aspect of their hormonal imbalance and the progression of it all, and when everything went downhill. And even if are not having your cycle anymore and you're postmenopausal, but you're still having issues, right, with hot flashes. Well, how do those hot flashes occur? When do they come on? Do they ascend? From where do they ascend, right? And just the beautiful thing about homeopathy in hormones is your lab levels actually might be okay, right? And yet you're still very symptomatic, and we can take the fullness of the case and understand, how your symptoms present, how you experience them, and then what things make them better or worse. I know I'm just kind of breaking things down that are like really basic, but again, that's what homeopathy is. And that's what we always come back to, is seeing for you as the client, as the one experiencing the imbalance, what is this experience like for you? What triggers things? What makes things better or worse? So that we can match with a well-fitting remedy. And I really do have women, like from all through, the entire spectrum of the hormonal journey. I have more women in their 20s, and then I feel like I have a pretty big gap. I think it's because so many women are busy in their early 30s, right? So they're getting pregnant, having kids. And then I get more women towards the end of their 30s all the way through 60s. It's like, oh, whatever was not dealt with in their 20s, right? They may have been on the pill. They were on the pill because of really bad cycles, really bad periods, terrible nausea and auras and migraines that were coming on with the periods. And yet I think sometimes when we think, I'll outgrow it, I'll move on, I'll get better, right? Because you're still really resilient in our 20s. And then we just push through. We're focused on career. Then pregnancy sometimes will alleviate a lot of our hormonal issues or autoimmune issues. And then they resurface, once we're done having babies and coming back into the hormonal cycling and everything. So yes, I care for a lot of different ages and stages. And I love when younger women are actually able to join me, because I kind of feel like I'm able to make up for lost time for all of myself and my friends, everything we've experienced. I'm able to kind of pour into them and be like, listen, this is what we need to do to get you on track to help your entire journey hormonally, because it's hard to see into the future when you're 20, when you're 24. So, but then when I have women who are in their like mid 30s, like 35 to 45, I'm really getting a lot of hormonal imbalance and then autoimmune issues. And it's all one big package. And we just start from the ground up and look at, Denise Strages always would say, like, you think about it when you're taking these bigger cases where it's like, it was probably just that one last final drop in the bucket that turned everything over and shifted their trajectory. And she always would say, when you're taking a big case like this with so many different symptoms, you're just looking for what rises to the surface, right? Because it's so deep. What is the biggest totality I can treat and care for at this current moment? That's where we start. And I think that the other thing, and I don't know how y'all are in the UK or other parts of Europe, but here, there are so many naturopaths and functional doctors. And so I get a lot of these cases where they may have done some dietary changes and elimination diets and maybe some cleanses. And so they find that it can help them to a certain degree. But then it's like there's something more. And so I think the biggest thing that homeopathy can meet the need there is often just showing that it's not about the potential allergen, right? Some women will come and say, oh, it's mold or it's dairy that's the problem, right? We're still pointing fingers at causation. But, sometimes that's truly the case. But a lot of times it's not. It's just the buildup of we're not able to adapt and move through all the many exposures and potential exposures that are coming at us. And so things just build. And so instead of pointing the finger at an external source, it's more of a looking at, okay, how do you as one unit react to any potential trigger out there? That was very long-winded.
That was wonderfully said, though.
Can we edit that? Can you speed?
You realize we're still recording. Ladies and gentlemen, for all those thousands of people listening, that was a blooper, and I'm going to keep it in. Thank you very much for saying what you just said. But hey, I have to say something. That was actually perfect timing because we are at the end of this episode, believe it or not. There's so much to talk to you about still, so we will talk some more. But until then, thank you so much for coming on the Homeopathy Health Show, sharing your experience. It's really interesting with the 22 years you've had as in the medical field, and then moving across to homeopathy, and both of them have just fused together so wonderfully. So it's really wonderful, and I wish you the best of luck, continued luck, and do check out Bethany's Instagram posts because I like them and they're really, really informative, and you will learn something in each one. So Bethany, until we speak again, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Atik. So nice to be here.
I do hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of the Homeopathy Health Show. Please do support the show by clicking follow on my socials. Remember, the more exposure the podcast receives, the better for homeopathy around the world. You can find me on Instagram by searching for @like_treatslike, and on both Facebook and TikTok by searching for @liketreatslike. So let's promote the voice of homeopathy on radio and podcast around the world together. Don't forget to visit me online at www.liketreatslike.co.uk and click on the radio and podcast tab. Here you'll be able to see all the guests that have joined me on the show so far, and of course you can stream on demand the latest episode to your mobile, tablet or PC. Until next time, stay safe and take care.